So MIDI effects allow us to apply some manipulation to the incoming MIDI notes that we are playing or have already recorded, and add more variation or detail or even notes to change the way that the notes are then heard when they are played through the instrument. So first of all, I just want to have a look over here on the left hand side. So we already know that we've got our instrument here in this section, and just to recap, when you hover over one of these, if you hover onto the left hand side, we have the power button, and this will bypass the instrument or the plugin. If you press the horizontal lines, which are representing the kind of parameter sliders, that will open your instrument or your plugin. And if you press the up and down arrow, you get a list of all the available options that you could choose to put in place of that. So just before the instrument, we have this MIDI effects box. Now, imagine your signal is coming in this direction. Okay, the MIDI has no sound at the beginning. It then hits the instrument, which then sends the sound to our fader so we can hear it. Now, if we add a MIDI effect before the note that hits the instrument, that could potentially add more notes into the instrument. So here are our list of MIDI effects. So the two that I'm going to look at are the arpeggiator and the chord trigger to start with. So the chord trigger, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this second instrument. I'm going to copy my part down. I'm going to lift it up 2 octaves. So Alt, Shift and up. So at the moment we have this. So the bass note in C0 octave, I copied the bass region onto the chord channel, and then you can see that that is 2 octaves higher. If I select both of these and just scroll a little bit, I will be able to see both of them in the piano roll. So I'm going to go to my chord, I'm going to go to my MIDI effects, and I'm going to add the chord trigger. Now essentially what this does is the incoming notes along the top will then trigger a certain amount of output keys. So if I press one note at the top, it will show you which note I'm pressing, and below shows the chord combination that has been played for me. Now they're all the same type and shape of chords at the moment. If we want to choose different types of voicings or chords, then we can come to this menu. So generally speaking, major is going to be happy, minor is going to be sad. Now if you're unsure, what I'd recommend is just press play, see what it sounds like, and we can have a skip through. So this is just in its default state. So the first 2 chords kind of work. The third one doesn't as much, but let's see what else there is. Now that kind of works. So I will just jump onto a major and a minor one just so that we can see that, but then I'm going to go back to this guitar open chords and use that. So here's a minor. And here is a major. So nice and easy, and it can also show you some potential chords that you can then work out so that you can play them yourself. What it doesn't do is it doesn't change the MIDI notes that we have input to play the chord notes. So next, now this could sound a little messy to start with, so I'm just going to leave the bass sound in. You can see that I've got some long held notes. So I've got my mellotron flute sound. So this is and the reason that I've gone for these long sustained notes is because I want to show you the arpeggiator. So what the arpeggiator does is it repeats the note normally faster than you would be able to play it yourself. So now we will start to be able to link back to any of these quantization values. You see that these are now going to be the same as what we have here in our kind of speed and rate of the arpeggiation, the repetition of the notes. So if I just play one note without the arpeggiator, the arpeggiator, when it's turned on, is going to repeat this at a rate of a 16th. So 16 slices. You can hear it's quite quick because the tempo is quite quick, so you can hear it almost vibrates. If I slow this down to like an eighth, it'll be half the speed. So we get to choose the speed that the note is repeated. If we then play a series of notes, they will then cycle through. So if I just can play 3 notes, at the moment they're cycling up, down, up and then down, alternately up and down, randomly, and as played. We also have the amount of octaves that we are playing over. So if I just drop this 1 octave and put it on 2. And now we just need to be mindful of if we are cycling up and we go up 4 octaves, that's 4 octaves on the keyboard, we could start to get very thin and very high pitched. So we might want to come down an octave first. So we come down an octave. So I'm going to leave it on 1 octave for the moment. I'm going to leave it on an 8th, and then I'm just going to simply play through these notes that have been inputted. We put the chord in. It probably won't work. Now we can play around with these. So at the moment I have the chord trigger. If I put the arpeggiator after it, what that will effectively do is it will take the single note that I played, create a chord from it and then play an arpeggiation of the chord. So we'll get this so we can see it together. So here's the chord trigger for my chord sound. Here is the arpeggiator. So if I turn the arpeggiator off and the chord off, and I play a note. If I turn the chord trigger on, if I turn the arpeggiator on, so if I run the chord trigger into the arpeggiator, and now this is a very different effect from if we run the arpeggiator into the chord trigger. So first, and then second. So you can almost get a kind of a strumming type feel to the way that the sound is played. And I would encourage you to experiment with some of the other MIDI effects that are here. So some of them will make a little bit more sense later on. So the modulation, maybe the randomizer, velocity. This again will make more sense when you've covered a bit of compression, but essentially this is evening out your notes and the velocity of the notes that you've played in. Note repeater is quite fun. So you can choose how many repeats. It's a bit like a delay. We can have them coming down in velocity and up in octave.